Well, hey, it's us again. And if you follow us on social media, you saw that we put out a bunch of questions for you to answer. Favorites, if you will. We put two classic categories against each other, then asked you to vote on what's your favorite. It was simple. You came out, you showed up, and we're going to discuss the results here. Mark, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All
I'm
right.
ready. This will be
So
good.
the first one is a doozy. Okay, but before we show you the results, I just want to let you know, Ford versus Chevy. That's a doozy. Hey, if you're online right now, answer in the chat. Answer in the chat. If you're watching this live, answer in the chat. Ford or Chevy. You can do that for all of them. What would you say?
Easy. I'm a Ford driver.
Oh, easy, he
Yeah,
says.
easy.
Well, we'll see.
Easy.
I personally know next to nothing about this, so I drive a Hyundai, so there you go. That wasn't an option. But, all right, here we go. Ford, Chevy. Let's see.
Wow,
Ford.
look at that.
Hey, you were right.
Of course.
Yeah,
Of course.
there you go.
And that just proves that Ford tough is not an oxymoron. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well,
It's
there
not.
you go. Callback.
Not- yeah.
Nice. That was great. You know, Chevy guys, I guess you need to come out stronger next time. That's all. If you really believe in this,
30-something.
you got to show up. That's pretty much it. All right, the next one, though, I do know a good bit about. Marvel versus DC. We're talking comics here. And this one is easy. You did this thing? No, it's easy. I already know the answer. Let's see what y'all said. And, yeah,
wow.
you know the answer, too. Yeah, because you know the answer because the 12% down here in DC, they're Batman fans. That's pretty much it. Because, like, other than Batman, Superman, who really is DC? The Flash? Green Lantern? Nah, like, miss me with
DC
that.
just means doesn't count. Right?
Yeah, well, in this voting.
Apparently.
Yeah, it does. Marvel rules the day. Yeah, that was easy. All right, we're going to move on. Another doozy, though, this time. Dogs and cats.
Oh, wow.
Dogs and cats. What do you got?
This might call us a fight or two. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. What do you got?
I own a cat named Jackie Chan.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm a cat
okay.
guy. I'm proud
Wow.
to say.
Does he do all his own stunts?
Oh, yeah. He's ninja.
All right.
It's great.
Tom Cruise style. All right. Well, I'm a dog guy. Let's see what y'all are right here.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Oh, my
You
soul.
are right. Way to go, Mark. Defend yourself, man.
I've got nothing to bark about.
Oh.
You get that?
Oh, did I get that?
Did you
Yeah,
get
yeah,
that? Yeah,
thanks.
okay.
Thanks for checking if I understood the joke. Yeah, dogs are the best. If you voted cats, you're wrong.
I think it's
you know,
like Cats the Musical.
Little strange.
They voted for
if it was Cats the Musical, it would be a lot lower than
Oh,
that.
you're probably right.
Okay,
Yeah.
it would be a lot lower than that. All right, here's one that's going to be apropos. Not going to say any more about it, but country versus rock, and I mean the music genre, the musical
Again,
genre. I mean, you're a Ford guy, and you like are adamant about it. So I don't want to stereotype, but I'm pretty sure you're a country guy.
I'm a country guy.
Okay,
Through and through.
Yeah, makes sense.
Easy,
makes
easy.
sense. Well, let's see what y'all are. I think I know how this.
Look at that. Look at that.
Oh, yeah, I know.
That's beautiful.
This. I'm in the minority here, rock, because I don't know, man. I just can't. I can't do it. I just can't.
It's not all that. Come
I
on.
mean,
come on.
it's mostly that.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Well.
But it's cool. I kind of knew this was going to be the result, to be honest. So it's all right. I kind of saw this coming. Last one, though, Pepsi versus Coke. Pepsi versus Coke. I think this one's going to be lopsided, personally.
Probably. I'm a Coke guy. I drink
Same.
Coke.
Same.
Gotta have
because Pepsi is just flat Coke, or some people call it sweet Coke. I just think it tastes flat no matter what. But let's check it out. Let's see if you agreed with us. Yeah, absolutely. Way to go. This is great. Great result. Pepsi, I think Pepsi should just go away so we only ever have Coke as an option. Because there's nothing worse than going to a restaurant and saying, "Can I have a Coke?" And they say, "We have Pepsi."
Right.
Being like, "Fine, can I have lukewarm water, please?" Because that would be a better option than your Pepsi. Anyway, well, that's all the voting. So I hope you voted with us in the chat. Thank you if you came out to our socials to vote. Thanks for playing along. We'll see you soon.
We all have favorites, don't we? Now, unlike most of you, I'm partial to Pepsi. And like most of you, I am definitely a dog person. I don't care as much about some of the others. And having favorites is fun. It's fine when we're talking about music and cars and things in our homes. Like I saw a meme on Facebook recently that said, one of the weird things about being an adult is having a favorite stovetop burner, yet nobody talks about it. Well, I'm talking about it. I have a favorite one. It's on the right, the one that's closest to me. And years ago, the Big Bang Theory character Sheldon Cooper made famous the idea that he had a favorite place to sit in his apartment. No one could touch his spot on the couch. And we might not be as fierce about it as Sheldon, But I have my favorite spot to drink my morning coffee in the recliner, and my favorite end of the couch to sit and watch TV. I bet you do too. Now, let's get a little more personal. How about our favorite people? Now, lots of families have fun with this, mine included. I have some aunts. Oh, some of you pronounce that aunts. I have some aunts who used to say, "Hey, it's your favorite Aunt Kim." I had cousins who would jokingly, maybe, call my mom favorite Aunt Faye. And on one side of my family alone, I had 6 uncles. Some of them would pull me aside and say, "I'm your favorite," right? Now, I'm not proud to admit I have carried on this tradition. Recently, I was with my niece Hazel, and I said, "I'm your favorite frame, right?" She looked at me funny. She said yes because it was clearly the expected answer. But we both know it's not true. Her answer is contextual. When she wants someone to play a game or do an art project, her cousin Lily Frame is her favorite. When she wants to be silly and goofy, cousin Tristan Frame is her favorite. And when she wants to eat some sugar, Uncle Sammy Frame is her favorite. And it's no wonder. When Uncle Sammy knows she's coming over, he makes special trips just for her. He goes and buys chocolate milk. We never buy chocolate milk, just so she can have some. And he'll run by Dunkin' for donuts or the store for ice cream. Aunt Angie isn't really Hazel's favorite frame. And we all know that. It's just a game. My stepdad plays this game by pulling each of the 4 grandkids aside and whispering in their ear, "Don't tell the others, but you're my favorite." Now, this game can be harmless if everyone knows it's a game. But it's not always a game, is it? And it's not always harmless. In the book of James in the Bible, showing favoritism gets called out loudly and clearly. My brothers and sisters, believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, must not show favoritism. As we've noted with other parts of James, it's very clear who James is giving this directive to. This isn't for everybody, although we could argue that favoritism is always bad. James is explicitly talking to those who believe in Jesus. It is critical that we not show favoritism, and God sets the example for us. Elsewhere in the Bible, in a letter to the church in Rome, it says, "For God does not show favoritism." And in a letter to a church in a town called Galatia, it says, "God does not show favoritism." The Bible is clear that God doesn't show favoritism. And if we are followers of Jesus, then we are always trying to be more and more like God, knowing we will never attain that goal entirely. And part of being like God is not showing favoritism to people. Well, okay, well, what does that mean? First, let's talk about what it does not mean. Not showing favoritism does not mean you have to relate to everyone equally. That's impossible. If we had to relate to every person the same, then we wouldn't have any friends. We would never date or get married, and the human race would end because there would be no more children. Dating requires that we spend more time with a person, that we're in closer proximity to them, that we treat them differently than other people. The same is true of marriage. And kids, when they enter our lives, they completely monopolize our time and attention. And it would be ridiculous to think that we have to relate equally to our 8-month-old baby, our 8-year-old kid, our 18-year-old teenager, and 80-year-old parent or grandparent. Jesus models this for us, not with people of different ages, but of different relationships and responsibilities. Jesus had 12 disciples. Now, we don't know, but is it possible that some of the people in the crowds around Jesus were jealous that they weren't asked to be one of the 12? Well, sure it is, because that's how people work. But when Jesus was a human, he couldn't relate to all of his followers or crowds of 5,000 people in the exact same ways. He had to select a manageable number, 12. And he went even further than that. Within the dozen, there were 3. At one point in his ministry, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Jesus selected just 3 of his followers to go on a hike with him and to see him be transfigured from his human appearance to his divine one. Now, again, we don't know, it's speculation, but I think it's safe to say that the other 9 guys would have liked to have seen that too, to have had that experience with Jesus. But he didn't take all of them on this trip or on other trips. These 3 carried more responsibility than the other disciples. It doesn't mean they were better or that Jesus was playing favorites. As we do life, as you do life, you'll have to relate to different people in different ways. That's okay. It's necessary. In fact, to try to do it all equally would be disastrous if it were even possible. So, what does it mean that we must not show favoritism? It means not valuing some people too much and others too little. And those 2 things always go together. You can't have one without the other. See, when we show favoritism to one person, we're saying they are better, more worthy. And by necessity, that means that everybody else is not as good as, not worthy of special treatment. So let's look at these 2 sides of the same coin individually. First, showing favoritism is valuing some people too much. One of Jesus' most passionate and capable leaders shows us this, Peter. Now, Peter, he was the guy, the one of whom Jesus himself said, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven." Peter was the man who was held in high esteem. He had the keys of the kingdom. He was the foundation of Jesus' church. If anyone had reason to think he deserved to be on the receiving end of favoritism, then it was Peter. And yet, when a man fell at his feet in reverence, Peter made him get up. "Stand up," he said. "I am only a man myself." This is a powerful statement for us if we're going to be people who don't show favoritism. Peter displays that if we're serious about not showing favoritism, then we have to be serious about not receiving it too. Because if we're part of it, if we allow it, then we are still culpable. Part of not showing favoritism is not letting people value us too much. How do we do that? We remember our humanity. That's what Peter does here. When he is shown favoritism, he dispels it by reminding others and himself that he's only human, just a man, no matter how much influence or prestige he has. And I'll admit it, this is hard. I mean, not the remembering my humanity part. I'm reminded of that every day. Just this past week, as I was walking out of small group, one of my friends said it was helpful for her to hear of my struggles too. Well, I got plenty of those to share, and she's right. One of the reasons that being in a small group where we can get real is so important is that we do just that. We get real about our own humanity. And when we do that, we mitigate against valuing ourselves or letting others value us too much. But to do what Peter did, to turn down preferential treatment, that's tough. I mean, because we all know favoritism is bad, and we all like it when we're the favorite. I have confessed this on this platform before. I'll confess it again. I was the kind of student who liked to be the favorite, the teacher's pet. And that didn't end when I graduated high school. My twin sister and I went to the same small private college on the same substantial scholarship, which was great because with colleges, it seems like there's an inverse relationship between how big it is and how much it costs. The smaller the school, the more exorbitant the cost. And let's be honest, even the big ones that are less expensive are plenty costly themselves. So these scholarships, they were game changers for us, sisters going off to college at the exact same time. And they seem to have come with a perk, namely a corner dorm room with a few extra square feet, but more importantly, a second window. Now, normally, I don't pay much attention to how many windows are around and which walls they're on because of this wonderful modern convenience known as air conditioning. However, when you're not living in a wonderful modern dorm room, but a beautiful old historic one, guess what you don't have? Air conditioning. Guess what you can't install on the front of a historic brick building with the big white columns? Window units. And guess what the weather's like in mid-August in Virginia? Hot. Insanely hot. Sticky, humid, too hot to sleep, too hot to work, too hot to think, hot. And in that situation, a second window on a perpendicular wall changes everything. Because see, it's not just a window into another view. It's the gateway for air to move, for a breeze. And in sticky, humid, mid-August heat, a breeze changes everything. Now, were my sister and I any more valuable than anyone else on the third floor of that dorm? No. Were we any more deserving of a breeze? No. Did we admit that to residence life and surrender our room? No. And was that necessary? Probably not. A more comfortable room's not quite the same as having someone kneeling in the dirt at our feet. But Peter's example is still profound. Peter recognized that he was being valued too highly. He also learned that he wasn't valuing others enough. That's the second half of this problem. Showing favoritism is valuing some people too little. Peter's realization of that began one day when he was on his roof praying and he had a vision. He saw a sheet being lowered from heaven with all sorts of animals on it that he wasn't allowed to eat as a Jewish man. And a voice in the vision told him to eat these prohibited foods. Surely not, Peter replied. I have never eaten anything impure or unclean. The voice spoke to him a second time. Do not call anything impure that God has made clean. Now, this is a weird story. It's odd to us because we don't decide which animals we eat based on whether they're pure and clean or not. But Peter was Jewish, and in his culture and faith, only eating clean animals was really important. And at first blush, that's what we think this story is about. But 2 days later, Peter will repeat what he heard in that vision. Do not call anything impure that God has made clean. Except this time, he'll be talking not about animals, but about people. See, God leads Peter to a town with people of another culture, and it's in that context that, as Peter entered the house, Cornelius met him and fell at his feet in reverence. But Peter made him get up. Stand up, he said. I am only a man myself. While talking with him, Peter went inside and found a large gathering of people. He said to them, You are well aware that it is against our law for a Jew to associate with or visit a Gentile. But God has shown me that I should not call anyone impure or unclean. When I read that Peter said this, it kind of makes me cringe. Like, really? God had to tell you you shouldn't do that? I can't imagine calling anyone impure or unclean, not to their face or behind their back. Or, well, maybe that's not entirely true. See, I used to go on lots of mission trips and weekend retreats with teenagers here. And after working outside in the heat for 8 to 10 hours, some of those guys would change out of work clothes and into athletic ones and then go play frisbee or basketball. And then they would try to come to dinner, to walk through a buffet line, hovering over the food, touching the serving utensils while sweat dripped from their bodies and dirt muddied their hands, and the smell created a 6-foot barrier around them. In that situation, I didn't hesitate to call someone unclean and ban them from dinner until they were clean. But calling someone dirty because of sweat and dirt, it's not exactly what Peter's talking about. See, it was against Peter's Jewish laws for him to be here with these people. Jews didn't associate with Gentiles or non-Jews. And those groups of people, they probably called each other all sorts of things. Yet Peter follows God's movement in his life to defy custom and culture and Jewish law and enter a non-Jewish home. I want to hang out here for a minute. See, God gave Peter the vision when he was at home. But the vision didn't become a realization until Peter entered a home he wasn't supposed to be in, with people he wasn't supposed to be with. That's when he got it. When he glanced around at the large gathering of people, when he looked into each face, that's when he realized that every single one of them was created by God in God's image and that they had value just because of that. That's when he connects the dots that vision wasn't really about animals. It was about these people in this home with him, because proximity matters. As long as Peter stayed with people who looked, talked, ate, dressed, and believed like him, it was easy to think of those people over there as impure or unclean. It was easy to be part of the favorite people and allow them to be the victims of favoritism. But then Peter followed God's nudge in his heart to go and be with these people. And he learned that it's altogether different when you're standing among them, not against them, when it's we instead of they. The way to counteract valuing people too little is to enter their world. That's what Peter did, and it's what we do. Like when we do good, we don't just send money to people in need. We take ourselves into their worlds. We see how they live. We do life alongside them in their communities, whether that's in Tanzania, Belize, or Moldova, or if it's in West Virginia, like where our student mission team is going next month. But we don't have to travel far to enter other people's worlds. When's the last time you entered a conversation with people who didn't look or live like you? Whether it's a clique at work or school, a tribe of moms who have different parenting ideas than yours, a different generation that you struggle to understand, or people of a different race or gender, what would it look like to enter their world, to be among them, to see them on their home turf where they're comfortable? How might it change your perception? Years ago, a family reached out to me for some time. They'd been coming to our church for a little while. They had some questions for me. So I made plans to visit them in their home, which shocked them. See, they were different from me, different from many of us. They were surprised that I would meet them in their home, and they were afraid that once I heard their story, found out who they really were and how they really lived, that they wouldn't be welcome anymore. But I was honored. I was honored to be welcomed into their home, to be entrusted with their honest questions and to give them honest answers. We spent a long time talking and we didn't shy away from the hard parts of the conversation. I mean, so far they were loving their experience here, but before they got too attached, they wanted to make sure that there was a real possibility that we could be their church. And it was a joy that night to speak on behalf of our church and say, yes, we can be your church. You can be church with us. And I knew I could say that because one of our core values here is that we're accepting of all people. We're accepting, which doesn't mean that we agree about everything, just that we accept all people, period. You know, that's the context for this verse from James. This prohibition of favoritism was written to people who were already part of the church about how to treat people who were checking out church. My brothers and sisters, believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, must not show favoritism. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes, and a poor man in filthy old clothes also comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing fine clothes and say, "Here's a good seat for you," but say to the poor man, "You stand there," or "Sit on the floor by my feet," have you not discriminated among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? James' whole point is about not showing favoritism at church. That's what he means by meeting. And having a good seat at church now is just as important as it was then. No matter what someone looks like, no matter how much money they have or don't have, whether they're young or old, black, brown, or white, no matter what they've done, where they're from, or if they've ever set foot in a church before, they deserve to be greeted by a friendly face who says, "Here's a good seat for you." This is really important to us here at PCC. Now that we're emerging from the pandemic, our campuses are growing again, so maybe it's a good time for a reminder. If you're here and you're a follower of Jesus, then make sure there are good seats available for everyone who walks through our doors. Do you know what qualifies as a good seat? One that's easy to get in and out of, namely, seats in the back close to the aisles. Do you know where I sit at church? Where I've always sat at PCC, long before I was a campus pastor or teaching pastor who hopped onto and off of the platform every week? Front and center. Do you know why? Well, first, I do actually like it up there because I can completely focus without distraction. But mostly because a guest isn't going to want to sit front and center. And if I sit there, then I free up a more comfortable seat for them without knowing who they are or what they look like, because that doesn't matter. They deserve a good seat just because they walked in the door. When we abstain from showing favoritism, our churches get bigger as more people feel more comfortable investigating their questions about God and Jesus and life. And we learn again that God isn't just for those of us who are already here. He's not just for the people who look like they have it all together. No, He is and always has been the God who created the whole world, who loves the whole world, who died for the whole world. He made every person, and He can interact with whomever He wants to, whenever and however He wants to. We don't get to put Him in a box or limit Him. Yeah, I want God to work in me and in our church, but He can also work in you and in the church down the street and the people who don't look like me, who don't dress or eat or talk like me. God can work in the person who's never been to church, even the person who's not sure about God. You know why? Because He's God, and that's His prerogative. And as Peter said, I am only a man myself. I'm human, and so are you. As such, we have value as people created by God in His image. And as such, we all fall short of being who God wants us to be. And we show favoritism instead of love. James says, if you really keep the royal law found in Scripture, love your neighbor as yourself, you are doing right. But if you show favoritism, you sin and are convicted by the law as lawbreakers. The opposite of showing favoritism is loving your neighbor. The opposite of lots of sins is loving your neighbor. God's been telling His people to love your neighbor as yourself for a long time. From an old book of Jewish law called Leviticus, to Jesus repeating it when He was on earth, to James repeating it here. And it's repeated so often because it's that important. And here's the truth. We're all guilty of not always loving all of our neighbors as ourselves, of valuing some people too much and others too little. So thank goodness. Thank goodness that God doesn't show favoritism, because I'm not sure I'd make the cut. And I'm grateful that I don't have to. Do you remember that survey we mentioned earlier where we had you pick your favorites? One of the questions was whether people's favorite music genre was rock or country. Well, country won by a country mile. So we're going to close today's service with a song for you. We don't usually do songs like this, but listen to the words, because we're all human. We're all doing the best we can with the time we have in the same broken world. We're all in this together.
We're all in the same boat, fishing in the same hole, wondering where the same time goes. We're all in the same boat. We believe what we believe, peacefully agree to disagree. But you can't judge a man until you walk a country mile in his shoes. We're all in the same boat, fishing in the same hole, wondering where the same time goes, and money too. Treads the same broken hearts, wishing on the same star. We're all hoping hope floats. We're all in the same boat. We all been kicked, knocked around. You ain't gonna keep a good man down. You can surely run from your mistakes, but you can't hide from your truth. We're all in the same boat, fishing in the same hole, wondering where the same time goes, and money too. Trying to fix the same broke hearts, wishing on the same star. We're all hoping hope floats. We're all in the same boat. Hey! Share them peaches if you wouldn't take those shots. Keep reloading if you can't be nice. Don't say nothing at all. Nothing at all. So help somebody that might be struggling. Spread a little love. Gotta give back something if the ship keeps rocking. We'll all go overboard. We're all in the same boat, fishing in the same hole, wonder where the same time goes, and money too. Trying to fix the same broken hearts, wishing on the same star. We're all hoping hope floats. We're all in the same boat. We're all hoping hope floats. We're all in the same boat.
God doesn't play favorites, and he invites us to do the same. Because when we realize that we're all really just in the same boat and treat each other well all the time, we can all begin to experience the fullest lives possible through Jesus. Thank you for joining us for almost the end of our Oh Brother series. We're going to wrap it up next week, so invite a friend, and we'll see you then.